Police officers and first responders wear badges to let their communities know they are here to protect and serve. But it comes at a price. Samantha Horwitz and John Salerno work with police departments across the country to bring valuable recovery, insight resources, and workshops. A Badge of Honor TV brings those professionals to you so we can come together and revitalize communities through a better understanding of what's at stake and what's required for repair. So take a load off and turn up your TV. It's about to get real.
Hey, welcome to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam. We are powered by the OBBM network, and it's Mental Health Monday, but it's also Easter Monday. I want to wish everybody on behalf of Badge of Honor, I hope everybody had a very happy Easter and a happy Easter Monday. How you doing, Sam?
Doing great today, John. Happy Easter to you as well. A lot of things going on. And just when we think that, we've obviously got, President Trump in office and seeing a turnaround in some things. And just when we think things are kind of inching and moving in a super positive direction for first responders, we find out that another state strikes again.
It's these horrifying stories that we hear each and every day. And truthfully, I was just speaking to our guest off camera, and I just heard more about her story. Colorado, or it was either Colorado or Denver, one of the cities over there has cut their budgets for mental health. And, out of all the things that you can cut your budgets on, why would you do that to our law enforcement? Why would you cut the mental health aspect? And I saw some of the comments, and I don't know their protocols or their procedures or anything else, but some of the comments were, well, now we only get 6 or 8 mental health visits per year, right? That's barring the critical incident, but only 6 to 8 per year per member. And, a lot of them were like, well, then screw it. I'm not even going to go. Why would I even waste my time with 6 sessions when I may need more, and then it's going to be out of pocket? I just don't see where these politicians, where their mindset is when they read the same news we do. When Harris County right here in Texas lost 4 officers in a 3-week period. We have Chicago who lost a multitude. We have New York that lost a multitude. And maybe it's because they think they're a small department or they don't need it, but they do because
Chicago isn't small. Chicago isn't small last time I checked.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have 30,000 sworn officers or if you have 6 sworn officers. The stress level is the same in every department. They see the same things. And I just don't understand why politicians aren't grasping the fact that, with any other injury, mental health is top priority. It's the invisible injury that sneaks up on everybody and hurts us the worst, because not only does mental health hurt the officer, it hurts the family that the officer is with. It hurts the relatives and the friends and everything that surrounds that officer. Yeah. I just, and that's why we keep doing what we do each and every week on Monday. And we do our workshops for our law enforcement and all our first responders to show them that they're not alone and we care and we're going to fight for them.
Yeah, and absolutely. What you said about families and how it affects, even though the families may not call it firsthand, the traumas and the calls that the first responders go on or they're dispatching to, they bear the brunt of the stress that comes home.
Yeah.
And because a lot of first responders don't want to talk about it, there's not really an understanding. And, our guest tonight is, she and her husband started, basically it's a legacy foundation for their son. And I'll let Donna tell Mitchell's story. Because at first, when you're reading, about the organization and you're reading about Mitchell, you're like, well, he wasn't a police officer that long. Makes absolutely no difference, because they didn't know how much he was absorbing, and we'll talk about the numbers and how many reports that he wrote. But let's bring Donna on. So we're going to talk with Donna, and Donna, you're going to have to pronounce your last name, even for me, and I'm usually pretty good.
It's Georgiana.
All right, Georgiana. So we got that. You got that, John? I got
that. I was able to pronounce that. After you told me to put the A in her name, I was able to do that, Georgiana.
Yeah.
Yes.
I went from Smith to Georgiana.
There we go. So welcome to A Badge of Honor TV. Please tell everybody about yourself, how you came to found Got You Covered Blankets, and a little bit about Mitchell.
Sure. Well, Mitchell was an incredible young man. I mean, he just, not because he was mine, he really was a special young man. And he started wanting to be a police officer when he was in high school. And as a mom, I thought, okay, this will pass. And he started college and majoring in criminal justice. And he was close to every professor that he had. He became president of their public safety club at his college. He started at a smaller school to begin with. And in fact, that school had nominated him for Alumni of the Year just before he passed. And we didn't know that until the day he passed. It was another plan that he had made with a former professor. And he transferred from Chattahoochee Tech and went on to Reinhardt. He had been to a skills contest for criminal justice, won a gold medal for the state of Georgia, silver for the national. He just absolutely was so excited. When he was invited to try out for the SWAT team, he had made the SWAT team, but he could not actively participate until the 2-year mark with being with the department. But he called my husband and I up, and he was so excited. He said, I made it. I was the only one that didn't throw up. We were like, okay, good for you, And so he, as I was just telling John a few minutes ago, he was on top of the world. I mean, he had told me when he graduated from college, when he turned 21, he said, I'm going to start putting my applications in. And I said, son, I was a mom. And
Right.
Here we are watching riots in Atlanta, and I'm going, and you want to do this? Why? But I said, son, you're very blessed. You don't have to work your way through school. Just hold off. He's like, Mom, they may not be hiring next year. I'm like, I'm pretty sure they will. And so he was hired. The chief at the time had been a former professor, and not that that's why he was hired, but he was hired and finished his last 2 semesters of college while going to the academy. He was absolutely on top of the world. And on November 16th of 21, of course, he was still at home, and I was just sharing with John, he had taken dinner to my mom for dinner because that's the kind of young man he was. He thought nothing about going to spend some time with his grandmother, and I had asked him to take her some dinner. And he came home that night. My husband was, we had been decorating for Christmas, and he told me, he said, I'll finish helping Dad with the lights tomorrow. And he was going to bed. He said, good night, I love you. And I said, I love you too. And I will forever wish that I could go back and just hug him tighter than I ever had. I had no reason to think anything was wrong with him. And the next morning I came downstairs. I was in the kitchen, and his room, when we purchased our house, it already had an addition for like an in-law suite. And so we had let Mitchell move into that room when his sister got married. He had his own little end of the house, and but you could tell if a light was on in the room through the reflection of the pane in the door. And many, many, many times he had left a light on or TV and didn't think anything about it. And I opened his door to turn the light off, and I could see that he wasn't in the bed, and I still wasn't alarmed because I thought I would find him asleep on our sofa in the family room. But I saw his gun on the bed, and then I found him. He had taken his life. And needless to say, our world was forever changed that day. I just could not make sense of it. Nothing made sense. My daughter will tell you, and the more I thought about it, she said immediately, and he and his sister were truly best friends. She said, Mom, I know he had a nightmare. And at first I was like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Until I started thinking back and remembered that he had shared with me one time about having some nightmares. And I said, son, you can't do this. You've got to take care of yourself, being a mom, worrying. And he said, Mom, every officer has night terrors. And I said, well, I'm not concerned about every officer. You're my son. And, we can be a sassy family sometimes. He goes, if you're going to nag at me, I'm not telling you anything else. And I was like, I'm not nagging at you, but I need to know you're getting proper rest, And he, before I went to bed, sweet little smile that he had, he said, I promise you, if I ever felt like this was interrupting my day-to-day routine, I would talk to someone. And so it took me a few weeks to kind of get back to that point and realizing how violently the covers were slung off his bed. We know he clearly was going to bed when he told us goodnight. He had texted someone at 12:30, and, the medical examiner said probably between 4 and 8 hours. So I do feel like something happened, whether it was a full-on night terror or just woke up in some type of state. And I don't know if that's my mom's heart that has to believe that, but I know every time that I'm talking to an officer about it, they will say, oh, those nightmares are real. And it was a few months after he had passed, and my husband and I were talking to a friend of his, and he literally said, I'm so sorry I didn't come to Mitchell's service. He said, my wife still can't do a first responder funeral. And my husband and I kind of looked at each other. We had no idea that she was an officer. And she had been retired for 5 years and suffered insufferably with nightmares. And he said, this hits home to me hard. He said, because there's so many nights that she's trying to get into the gun safe, And like I said, our world is forever changed. He was just a jewel of a young man. Every goal he set for himself, he met. And of course, he was precious to me, but he truly was just such a kind-hearted young man. What we would find out after he had passed is the House bill that was passed in 22 that awarded some officers line of duty death. Mitchell's death was ruled line of duty, is that he had been on 369 serious traumatic calls in 18 months. Wow. 30 of those were homicide or suicide. I had no idea. I thought he had the most boring job because every morning he would come in and I would be like, how's your night? How's your night? Fine. Anything exciting happen? No. And, he would tell us the funny drunk stories. And the few times he did tell us about a serious thing, one time a guy shot himself in the face. And of course, Mom said, oh, I wish you hadn't seen that. He was 22 years old. He was my baby. And he said, Mom, he was a criminal, But it just rocked our world to the core. And yes, it was nice that they recognized it as line of duty. It doesn't change the way he died, but at least we know that we're bringing awareness that we have a problem. I had no idea that suicide was the highest rate of officer deaths. I had no idea.
Yeah, you guys are doing an amazing job honoring Mitchell's legacy. I hate to do it, but we got to take a quick break because I know I can see the reactions that people are sending on Facebook and Instagram. And we've got to take a quick break. But when we come back, let's talk about that legacy and how you guys decided to start Gotcha Covered Blankets. Because it's a heartwarming story that you have on your homepage. We'll be right back, everybody. Stay tuned.
Forget Zoom, try Meetin. Meetin is a brand new video meeting service. And not only is Meetin simpler and easier to use and more powerful, Meetin also has the right values. Here at Meetin, we believe in freedom. We believe in privacy. We believe in America. And we are apolitical. Now, to get your free forever version of Meetin, Just go to meetin.com, spelled this way, and then where it says promo code, type in the word special. That's your promo code, okay? So go to meetin.com, type in the word special, and you'll get Meetin free forever. I'm Rick Raditz, and I look forward to serving you as a customer of Meetin.
Hey, welcome back to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam and our special guest, Georgiana, founder of Got You Covered Blankets, in memory of her hero son who valiantly joined the police force. He excelled in everything. And that was a heartwarming story, Donna. It's just, I have to question a couple of things, and you don't have to answer. And,
Sure.
I'm happy that the department gave him the honors that he deserved.
Well, that was from the Department of Justice. Not that they didn't support fully, because they had to get on board with all of the application process. But that was the national thing, yeah.
But here's the thing that troubles me. He's a young officer. He was 22, 23?
23.
23. Our brains don't fully develop till about 27, 26, 27, right?
Absolutely.
And he saw roughly over 350 traumatic incidents within an 18-month period.
Right.
And he wasn't being offered any decompression. So he wasn't offered any help for, and this is where with police departments across the country, they'll look at your summons numbers, they'll look at if you're late, they'll look at your attendance record. Why isn't anybody looking at these numbers until this happens and goes, wow, look how much stuff he's seen in such a short period of time? And 2021, we knew about mental health. It's not like we were back in the dark ages, back in the 70s.
Right.
This was upfront and personal. That means somebody either dropped the ball or programs were not in place to keep our officers and your son protected.
And I know they did have a peer support program, and I think their department was as blown away as we were. I mean, it had never happened there. And, I had a lady, there was a suicide awareness class that he had been in. And of course, it was at I don't remember who she was or where she was from, but she had done a suicide awareness class that he was in. And she said, he was such a respectful young man. He wasn't one that it was on his phone all during it. And that's not to him, because at the time I was thinking, what are you implying here? I don't think there were anything going on at that point, but he was always being the respectful one to learn more, to strive more. And maybe he did know he was struggling with some things. I don't know.
Right.
I wish I did, but I don't. And so I know that things had been offered, but we've got to do more. And I had no idea, which our Captain Michael, retired Captain Michael, that we couldn't, is having technical difficulties. He, at the time, was the Cobb County Peer Support Commander. And I had no idea that he was at my home the day that my son passed. And about a year later, he found out that we were starting the foundation. He came to our events when we were fundraising to start it, and just became involved. And of course, now is a total part of our family. And but he was working on a conference that our foundation is now co-hosting in 2 weeks, First Responder Conference. And he invited me to come, my husband and I, and we did. And he said, I'm doing my graduation class today at the academy, and Cobb County implemented an incredible peer support program that he was in charge of. And when the graduates got through the academy, and I wish he could be on to share more, because he's the wealth of knowledge. They had this mandatory peer support class that they went through, and the families were strongly encouraged to come. Wow. So he said, would you like to come? And I said, absolutely. I came home, got my husband, we took off, and just sat there, because he covered just what I was saying a minute ago. If your officer, whether it's husband, son, whatever, comes in and you always say, how was your night? Fine. Anything going on? No. If it's continual, you know something's going on. And I just sat there. It hit me like a ton of bricks. And I told my husband, again, if we had just been offered something like that when my son graduated the academy, again, hindsight's 2020. Not that it would have changed anything, but maybe we would have had some inclination what to look for.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really beginning to think, wow, he's just out cruising the streets every night, hindsight. And of course, I worried about him. And he again was so incredible. There was many times I would be like, now, if I wake up during the night and I call you, you don't have to talk. We don't have to text. I just need to know you're okay. So pretty soon I learned very quickly what C4 meant, because I was like, what's C4? Code 4, Mom. Everything's good.
There you go. There you go. When we come back from our next break, I want to get into the text that spurred you guys on to really getting all the blankets created and what you guys do right now. So we got to take a break and we'll be right back. Stay tuned, everybody.
Look, when you need to respond to an aggressive situation to protect yourself, your family, or your property, understanding your firearm and legal position are critical. Officers know your skills are only as good as your commitment to training. So know what you're doing. So when you're in a vulnerable situation, we can count on your response. Whether you're a beginner or a licensed gun carrier, Carry in Texas offers basic firearms training, Texas permitless carry courses, license to carry, and basic 2A courses so you can understand the responsibilities, situational awareness, and learn the technical skill required when you carry your firearm. Go to carryintexas.com to find the right course for you. Join me, former United States Secret Service agent Samantha Horwitz, on the range for beginner basics, LTC prep, and range practice. Go to carryintexas.com today. That's carryintexas.com.
Hey, welcome back to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam. We are powered by the OBBM network. And we lost our guest.
We lost Donna. I just saw her click off. I'm not sure if there was some sort of technical difficulties. And Chris, who's on her board, Chris Michael, who Donna was just talking about, he's a retired captain from Cobb County, who started the peer support program. And Chris, here is Donna back.
Sorry.
Chris really gets
back,
exactly what needs to happen. So welcome back, Donna.
Thank you. I was trying to text Chris on his technical difficulties, and I was like, oh no.
It's all good.
Well, before we left, and we're going to get into the text, before we left, we talked about the importance that family members know the signs and the red flags and be a part of the journey that the officer is taking, be it a husband, wife, daughter, son, whatever it is. The family does have to be have some knowledge of what to look for, because sometimes the family will be able to get things out, and maybe a peer support group can't, because cops, as you know, are great at faking everything. So, maybe the family who's a little bit more intimate. So thank you for bringing that up, because we pushed that as well.
Thank you.
You want to bring up the
text?
Yeah. So on Sunday evening, we had a really good weekend. The weekend before Mitchell passed, he had one of his best friends from high school had gotten married, and we were all at the wedding on that Saturday evening. And my husband and daughter and myself came home. The wedding was about 2 hours away, and of course he said, "I think I'm going to stay, with the groomsmen." And we said, "Okay." Called me the next morning and said, "I'll meet you at church. I'm leaving." And we had just a really good family Sunday afternoon, church, lunch together with friends. And he went out that evening and he sent me a text. And as you know, it just said, "Do you have any old blankets you want to get rid of? Or if you come across any old blankets?" And I said, "For what?" And he called me and he said, "Mom, it's getting really cold out and I've seen a lot of homeless people." And here I am sitting next to the fireplace going, and I looked at my husband and I was like, wow, And I wasn't surprised, but it just took me back because my brain was, what do you want blankets for? You know, when I said, of course, I'll find you some blankets. Your grandmother and I will buy some if we need to. And never knowing that my world would be forever changed on that Tuesday morning. And I'm a person of faith. So I always say Jesus didn't come and stand before me, but I was in his room about 3 days after he passed. And literally wondering how I would survive losing this precious boy of mine, and just crying out to God, how do I get through the loss of my son? And I just had something come over me, and I can't explain it. I just knew that I had to keep his name alive. I just, at that moment, I felt like you are going to honor him somehow. And I immediately, 6:30 in the morning, and I'm just losing my mind, crying hysterically. And I just thought, I'm going to do something. I will do something. I get on the phone. I called my mom. I said, we got to do something. I don't know what it is, but we have to do something. And I called one of his lieutenants and I said, you have to help me. And my husband, I'm sorry, my son was an avid golfer since he was in 4th grade. I said, you have to help me. We're doing a golf tournament. I just could not. I just knew I had to do something. Called my friend who's a financial broker. You have to, I don't know how to set up a foundation. You have to help me. She was like, well, can we get through the funeral first? And so that day became a conversation with my family and my mom. And we said, you know what? We'll do something with this blanket thing. And so I said, I don't know how we're going to do it. And as I was sharing with John earlier, my husband was going through some health issues. And I thought if we can just get through this surgery and literally get through the holidays. Mitchell's funeral was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And I thought if we can just get to January, then I'll get busy. And I did. I started calling anybody that I thought might have a clue on how to start a nonprofit. And by this point, my mom had said, you know, he was so precious and so special. We have to honor him. And also by this point, every friend and family and church family had found out what we were doing, and people were just bringing bags of blankets to me. And so it was, you know, I gave them the option to take them back if they were new or to donate further, because by this point in January, I was contacting a local sporting goods store that we know the owners. And I said, hey, how can I get a custom made blanket? And he set me up with the people that have designed. And of course, now we deal directly with them. It's Print-A-Tex here outside of Atlanta. And it just kind of came to be. We charge $75 for the blanket. So it's basically for two. So when someone donates $75, they get to keep a blanket, and one's put into a patrol car.
Oh,
When we started this in March of 22, my goal was if I can just get my son's department with blankets by the end of the year, that's all. And we're talking about maybe 50 something patrol cars. I had no idea that by the end of 22, I would have blankets in all of Cobb County and all of the city precincts. And so now, of course, since then, Captain Michael has retired from the county and he has become a board member. And this is where his expertise really comes in, because anytime we find a new department that wants the blankets, we take them. He goes with me or my husband and I, and we sit down with that leadership. And I literally just tell them my mom's story, but then he goes into how important it is to have these peer support programs and resiliency training. And because it starts at the top.
Yeah, well, you talked about the amazing heart and giving spirit of Mitchell. And, you know, one of the things that we talk about with mental health is when you're doing for others, the focus is off yourself and kind of what the crappy crap you're sitting in.
Right.
But without using the word I'd like to, since we're on TV. So he had that ability to get outside of himself. And, when you listen to, he's now, because he's part of your logo, he's now in every single cop car in Cobb County. And, his spirit, you said you were religious, his spirit is literally, he's still a police officer in spirit. And the fact that he gets to, when that police officer gives out the blanket to a homeless person or somebody that needs it, maybe that they had a fire, they don't have anything, that your son's spirit is telling them it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So I know it doesn't bring him back, but he, as far as a legacy goes, he's visible everywhere. And it's absolutely amazing how you formulated this.
Well,
the blankets are absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the website, and the blankets are absolutely beautiful.
Let's put that website up right now. So gotchacoveredblankets.com.
Right.
And again, you can see Mitchell, what Mitchell looked like when you go visit the website. And the fact that you have tied it in, as well as retired Captain Chris Michael has tied this to talking about wrapping yourself in the mental health aspect of, hey, this isn't just about blankets. This is how the story came. This is how we came to be. And this is the legacy that we want to pass on. Your daughter is involved. So is Mitchell's sister is involved in the foundation as well, correct?
Yes.
And we talked about families and how trauma affects families in the beginning of the show. How'd she do with all of this?
She's still struggling, like we all are. She just turned 30 this year, which is hard to say that I have a 30-year-old. But she's an amazing young woman. She's a strong, strong girl. But he was her best friend. And I know it's hard for her sometime. It's, what it does to a family is just unimaginable. And through for the foundation First Help, we have met, there's been so many things that have happened. We met a family that is our very best friends now, like family, but they live in Boston, but they lost their son, David Betts, 8 years ago. And I was reading the husband as a police officer, Dave. He was at the time a captain outside of Boston, and I was reading his story, and I said, I need to talk to these people. And my daughter laughed, and she was like, they don't know you, and you don't know their name. I said, well, I'm going to figure it out when I get on the phone. I never knew, this was 2 years ago, that this friendship would develop. Dave has designed a card in memory of his son. It's the Miranda card for cops. And you have the right to speak up when you're having trouble. And so the wife and I, there's not a day goes by that we don't talk. They have a 30-year-old daughter, as I do. But our journey kind of started because we had our first annual gala last year, and still had not met these people in person. We're just talking on the phone. And I was like, would you come down and be our speaker? Because I knew that he was going to be powerful. Not only was he a police officer and captain, but he was a father who had been through what we had been through. And he was unreal. It was hard. It was sad, but it got a lot of attention. And of course, they stayed in our home, and now they've been down here 4 times. But at the time, it was kind of funny because I've never had strangers stay in my house that I hadn't met in person. And my husband was like, they're staying with us. I said, yeah, it'll be good. And then we were driving to the airport, but we've never met them. He said, well, it's too late now. So it's just crazy the things that have happened, and it's because of our boys. And but I say all this to say, for the gala, after we had blankets in all of pretty much the metropolitan area around us, I knew I was trying to think of what we could do. And I told Captain Michael, I said, I want to have an event where we honor officers for acts of kindness and generosity. And Of course, some of the departments looked at me like, what? I said, I know you have years of service. I know you have acts of valor. I want the community to see what, unless you know an officer, people aren't going to hear about. And so we just had our second annual gala and actually had 2 counties come in that were not from Cobb and participate. And we award these officers for acts of kindness and generosity and a blanket of hope. And it gives us an opportunity to see where the blankets are going. And it's not always for homeless people. It's
Right.
an autistic child that ran out in 8-degree weather last winter. And of course, it was a heartwarming story to me because one time my son did come in at 7:30 in the morning and he had mud from head to toe. And I said, what did you get into last night? And he said, I was chasing an autistic child. And of course, I never knew. I was just a mom sitting here. And I said, well, where was his mother? Why was he out in the middle of the night? And my son said, Mom, they run and they run towards water. I never knew that. And so we, full circle moment, we awarded an officer for pretty much the same thing. He literally saved this child's life because
Wow.
it was 8-degree winter last year, this one night. And the paramedic said, thank God you had that blanket in your car and were able to wrap her up.
That's amazing. And like I said, you're just
Yeah.
seeing your son in so many different
Yeah.
places. We got to take a quick break for station identification. When we come back, I want to talk about how everybody who's watching and listening and beyond can get involved to help support the cause and some of your upcoming events and how they can help with that. So we'll be right back, everybody. Stay tuned.
Leftovers again? It's time for something we haven't had in a long time. It's time for something right. It's time to make the right choice. OBBM Network TV is always the right choice. Choose right.
Hey, welcome back to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam, with our guest Donna, who is the founder of Gotcha Covered Blankets. And, you know, if you're just joining us now, you got to hit the rerun on this and listen to the powerful story that Donna has shared with us so far. And, you know, these blankets, you know, we could put people on a wall, we could hold them, we can memorialize them in a statue someplace, but your blankets are going through every police car. They are going through all the nations, all our states, and every officer throughout from east to west is going to know your son's name. And that's what we got to do. As long as we say their names, as long as we remember who they are, they're never truly forgotten. They're always with us somehow.
Exactly.
So how do people get involved with your organization, either by purchasing blankets or, you know, to help with different events?
Yeah. So we have 3 main events that we have. And we are co-hosting this first responder conference in Atlanta here in 2 weeks. So we really want, when I went 2 years ago, I was, you know, again, I'm not in law enforcement. I was just a mom, but hearing the stories and hearing the importance, I mean, it was all those things. Once again, I wish I had known this before. And so we are just hoping that we have a good turnout for this. I'm blown away that we're in a position that we can co-host it. But thanks to Captain Michael, who was, I always laugh and call him our educator. But then we have a big golf tournament in October. As I said, my son was an avid golfer, so of course we were going to have a golf tournament, and it's very special. It's at the golf course that he played at all through high school. And now my husband works there part-time in his retirement gig. And then we have a bike ride that is kind of turned into a national thing. It's very special and very sweet. It's an officer that my son had worked with at Smyrna. He would left to go to another department, and he called me a few months after Mitchell passed. He said, you know, I'm in this motorcycle club. He said, we'd like to do a ride because we did have a scholarship set up for Mitchell, and we just met the 3rd recipient this past Friday. And so we've had 3 scholarship recipients since he passed. And I said, well, the scholarship's already covered. I said, but I'm working on starting this foundation. This is in, 22. And I said, would you mind doing it for that? And he said, no. So we had our first bike ride that summer and had about 50 something guys show up. The next year it was about 90. And last year we had 170 bikers.
Wow.
Awesome.
And it was amazing. I actually rode with one of the young men, and I looked back and I just immediately, all I could think of is, oh, dear God, Mitchell, this is for you, buddy, And so it's a national law enforcement, first responder motorcycle club. And so last year we went to Mississippi and South Carolina through different chapters of the motorcycle club, Eternal Few. And again,
I know them well. I know them well.
Whole world, yeah.
Yeah. And so we've gotten to know these guys from across the country. They're coming in from Iowa, from Oklahoma, and it is just so heartwarming to see. And so that's June 7th this year. And our ride, and then we'll have our golf tournament in October, and then our 3rd annual gala will be in January on Mitchell's birthday on January 24th, where we award the officers for acts of kindness. Our golf tournament, I will not ever charge a law enforcement officer. So anytime anyone wants to donate for an officer to be a part of it, we are so happy to have that. Because I will not charge them to come to the gala or to the golf tournament ever.
That's great. So it's gotchacoveredblankets.com is the website. And so for those of you listening on your favorite podcast app, you can go there after you listen to the episode. And if you'd like to help out and, get in touch with Donna, get in touch with the staff there. Again, Gotcha, Gotcha. That's how you spell gotcha.
Yeah.
For again, those listening on the podcast, coveredblankets.com. And again, that is the best place. And then you have all your information about the galas and how everybody can register there as well.
We do.
Right?
We do.
Okay, fantastic. So with that, we got to take our final break of the hour, and we will be back to wrap up and then talk about the cool things that they can see on social media of what you guys are doing. So stay tuned, folks. We will be right back.
Rise and vibe with your new elevated morning ritual. Meet Rise by Frequency Charged Nutrition. Rise is formulated with a blend of 7 different organic mushrooms, B vitamins, amino acids, and green coffee bean extract. Rise supports brain health, performance, and focus while enhancing mood, mental clarity, and energy. Enjoy the delicious mango lemonade flavor while giving your mind the nutrients it needs. Get charged up with Rise. Fuel your body and mind today.
All right, so you hear John and I talk about it every week, Rise and Vibe with me and John. And, not only tonight's show, but every week we talk about mental health. And you're probably wondering, well, how the heck does an energy boosting product go along with mental health? Well, in the commercial, you hear how it talks about brain health. And when you introduce healthy nootropics to your brain, you are introducing a level of health that is not found in an energy drink. Okay, it just doesn't exist. So what does this mean? Look, as first responders, John and I have been there. It's exhausting at sometimes, okay? But reaching for those energy drinks over and over and over again, the sugar actually acts as a toxin. So based upon the research and the things that we see as first responders in our career, when you're introducing additional toxins to the brain, if you're struggling with your mental health, that's not good. And a deep dive has gone into the company called Frequency, which makes the Rise and the other supplements that I talk about, source minerals that I take every day. And in addition to the energy boost that's healthy, that you get that I do pre-workout, those your brain is being fed healthy, not only vitamins, but it's those critical that mushroom blend that they talk about. And if you go on to Frequence, and FREQUENSE, you can read about how those mushrooms impact your brain health. So take care of your mental health by getting charged up with me and John by ordering your Rise today. And it is super easy. We have put together some packages for you. Go to a badgeofhonorhealth.com. That's a badgeofhonorhealth.com, because again, you want to support your brain health instead of introducing tons of sugar and other chemicals that are in all those other drinks out there that first responders, and hey, we're not no judgment, because we used to drink them, but you can now drink something that is literally healthy for your brain and can make all the difference. So we'll be talking about that more. A badgeofhonorhealth.com. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us directly. Now we are going back to the show. All right, so welcome back, Donna. We were talking about how people can reach out directly to you. Where else do you guys play other than Facebook, if anywhere?
We have an Instagram and a Facebook.
Oh, fantastic.
And,
okay, so what are you on Instagram?
It's Got You Covered Blankets.
Okay, so everybody listening and watching us on live on Instagram, there you go. Got You Covered Blankets. And then you said TikTok?
We don't have TikTok, no.
What was the third one?
Just the Facebook and the Instagram and the website.
Okay. And the website. All right. So there's many places to follow. And I will say your Facebook page is chock full of not only great information, but the pictures of all of the galas and everything, all of the events that you guys have put on, so you can get an idea of what's going on. And, Donna, your husband, you and he started this. Your daughter is also involved in the foundation. Unfortunately, we couldn't hear from retired Captain Chris Michael, who had some tech difficulties. But, what would you say to first responders watching and listening? Because you've been inside, I'll say, our four walls of a lot of departments. Right. What would you say your message is?
Well, just to take care of themselves. And, last week I somehow, I don't, I think, oh my gosh, how has this even happened? But one of my officers, who's like an adopted child, called and said, we had a suicide in another department here. And he said, can I give them your number because the mom is struggling? And I said, of course. And, I know what she's feeling, but I don't know what she's feeling. And I wanted to be very careful not to say that, because everybody is and her, the situation was different. He was married, he had children. It wasn't, it's always a different situation, but I wanted her to know that there was a support. And I don't think there's, like my friend from Boston, she is absolutely part of my heart now. And I realized she has taught me so much because she's 8 years out. And she had her birthday last week, and she was kind of, grumpy, and she even said, I'm just in a bad mood today. And I said, why? And she said, tomorrow is my 9th birthday without my son. Well, here I was coming into Easter going, it's going to be our 4th Easter without our precious boy, And I realized it's not going to matter if it's been a month or 6 months or 25 years. Yeah. This integral part, this piece of our family, it's forever changed. And so while we want to offer as much support to these officers as we can, it is so imperative that we take care of them. And one thing I'm noticing, my friend's son in Boston was 24. We lost a second officer at my son's department 14 months to the day after my son passed. He was 24. And this young man last month was 26. And I'm like you said, John, I just don't think we're equipping these young men with everything they need to handle this. And they were all been college graduates. The young man last month had worked on his master's degree, already had it. And it's like they're working so hard and they want to serve, but there's something we're not letting them know that help is out there, or else they're scared to go and find it. And we have got to do better.
You're right. And it's not that we're not letting them know. It's that we're not offering them the assistance in getting to get that support
Right.
that they need without consequence.
Right.
The stigma is real in
It's
so
real.
many different places.
Yeah.
So everybody fearful of that. We have to offer more. We have to give them, like if you sprain your arm or you sprain your leg, the same thing. Let them go, let them
Absolutely.
heal, and then let them come back. Mental health is no different than any other physical injury.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely right. After our gala, we had a chief tell us from one of our departments here in Cobb County that they now have, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how old you are, what your rank is, they have to check in with a counselor outside of the department. And I forgot how often it was. He said, but I don't care what they talk about, but they all have to go. And hopefully we're breaking that stigma, because if everyone has to go, then no one's looked upon funny for going.
Correct.
Well,
And
you said it all. We've just got to do better. And,
Yeah.
Donna, you and Chris and your husband, again, your family, all the people that have lived this ripple effect of suicide. It's a family, it's families forever change, but you are doing amazing work. Carrying on Mitchell's legacy. And we can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing his story and about Gotcha Covered Blankets. Again, the website, Gotcha, GOTCHA, for those of you listening on your favorite podcast app, gotchacoveredblankets.com. Go there, give what you can, support how you will. And just thank you so much for spending the time with us tonight.
Thank
Donna.
you for
Thank you, Donna.
inviting us. Thank you
Pleasure.
so
We'll
much.
spread the word as well.
Thank you so much.
And we will be in touch.
Okay. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Yeah.
Wow, just heartbreaking and heartwarming, all rolled into one. What a special gift in her son's legacy, truly. And Donna talked about the understanding, the piece of we've got to do more, because we've got to understand with these young people what is going on. And John, that's part of why we do what we do. Continue our service with a badge of honor and creating it. And so May 2nd, if you're a first responder, we are putting on a workshop that talks all about post-traumatic stress awareness. You got to be aware of what the job can do and what the changes in your brain looks like, so you can be effective in asking for whatever kind of help you think you may need. And it looks different for everybody. So again, that's May 2nd. It is free to attend. The workshop information is up on our website, abadgeofhonor.org. You can't miss it because it's a big pop-up. So it'll pop up there and you can register. Again, it's free to attend. We got breakfast, lunch, all the materials covered. And if you're a Texas first responder, a Texas police officer rather, you get TCOL. It's 8 hours. Also 911 communicators, 8 hours TCOL credits as well. So get signed up now, because registration will be closing. And that will be our last full 8 hour workshop before we kind of make a transition for the summer, which we always do. So with that also, we can't forget to talk about one of our major contributors that allow us to do what we do for free right now, and that's Carry the Load. Carry the Load we are grateful to be nonprofit partners with them. Once again, what does that mean? We are part of what's called their Continuum of Care program, which provides for veterans and first responders and their families. And so when you support Carry the Load, you support organizations like ours. And you can find out about Carry the Load by visiting our website, scrolling down to our partners. You can see it, their logo right there. Boom, click on it. And as we promised, when you go on our homepage, you will see a blue donate button. And we started at the beginning of April, every donation that is made will go forward into Carry the Load. So we want to thank all of you who have gone and clicked that blue button and made a donation. We thank you so much for doing that. Let's keep it going, and so we can continue to spread the word. So that, again, is a badge of honor. .org. To all of the first responders out there, we thank you for what you do every day, keeping our communities safe here at home. We are praying for you every single day. For all of the veterans out there, thank you so much for fighting the good fight that allows John and I to do a show like this each week. And for our active duty personnel out there still spread out across the globe, thank you for keeping our shores safe here at home. We also pray for your safe return. John, take us home.
Well, Donna couldn't have said it better, man. Hindsight is 20/20, but we can change the narrative if we just educate ourselves just a little bit, interject ourselves into the conversation, and learn about what our law enforcement goes through. Like she said, more law enforcement are being we're losing more by their own hands than by criminal gunfire, and that's got to change. So talk to your politicians, talk to your local leaders, and get those programs put in place. Peace.
Till next week, everybody. See you then.
A Badge of Honor podcast is produced for the OBBM Network podcast and protected under copyright law. For content permissions, please submit your request to abadgeofhonor.com on the content page. For OBBM Network programming information, please call 214-714-0495 today.